Welcome to the Model Health Show. This is fitness and nutrition expert Shawn Stevenson, here with my amazing co-host and producer, Jade Harrell. What's up, Jade?
What's up, Shawn?
How you doing today?
Today, I'm feeling like an active analyst.
I'm perplexed. What is that?
I am activating my inner catalyst so we can make impact together.
Look, that's deep.
Like the ocean.
Crazy. You're crazy.
I know.
Well, we've got an amazing show lined up for you guys today. We've got a special guest in the building. He's got probably the coolest name ever, too.
Right.
You got Rich Roll on the show today.
Right.
And we're going to rock the house. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff. We're going to talk about ultramarathons, like what is it? And we're going to talk about raw foods, which I have a special place in my heart. And we're going to definitely talk about that too, what that special place is.
Rich Roll does raw.
And it's just going to be an amazing show and a lot of great insights here in store for. But first, let's give a huge shout out to our show sponsor, Onnit.com.
I just love them.
Head over to ONNIT/model for 10% off all of your health and human performance supplements. Huge fans of the Hemp Force protein.
Yes.
Plant-based protein.
Hero protein.
Rich would approve. This is coming from hemp, which is likely the most bioavailable protein structure is going to be found for the human body, found in hemp. So in particular, we're looking at edestin and albumin, which are very soft. In particular, albumin is a very soft globular protein, which is why a lot of people would turn to something like egg whites and have a horrendous kind of experience or just like an idea, like I'm just gonna eat some egg whites.
Drink it down.
How nasty.
I've seen it.
You know, but people will do that to try to get these soft globular proteins like albumin, but you're gonna get this in a much more bioavailable and clean source and tastes good.
Yes.
In Hemp Force.
That's good stuff.
So check out Hemp Force Protein, also huge fans of the Shroom Tech Sport.
And the Shroom Tech Immune.
Two amazing formulas to number one, to help to improve your energy in a natural, intelligent way, not something to spike you out like Crunk Juice or Monster, whatever. You know, all
Monster
these crazy,
anything,
Monster. I don't want any monsters coming into my system. So definitely head over there and check them out. These formulas are based on, number one, a Shroom Tech Sport, cordyceps mushroom, over 5,000 years of documented history in Chinese medicine.
Can't beat that.
Clinically proven to improve your oxygenation of your cells, improve your insulin sensitivity, good stuff.
Yes.
Shroom Tech Immune, based on chaga mushroom, highest ORAC food in the world. All right, chocolate is awesome. It's more than chocolate. Red wine is awesome. Get a little tipsy. More than red wine. You're gonna find the highest ORAC antioxidant food in the world in chaga, and also 300% increase in your NK cells, your natural killer cell function. Just really, really good stuff to have. I'm about to hit quite a travel here, jumping from city to city.
My goodness.
Guess what I'm on? I'm on that Shroom Tech Immune. Get my system ready.
That's right, for all that's going to come
beforehand.
out.
Exactly. So head over there and check them out, Onnit.com/model for 10% off all of your health and human performance supplements. Now let's get into the iTunes review of the week.
This is my favorite part. This is from Jason Portland, from Portland, Oregon. Another 5-star rating. Thank you guys for the 5-star ratings. Can we say light bulb moment? Wow, such a great podcast. I've never had so many light bulb moments in my health, and I thank you for that. Shawn and Jay deliver each episode by dissecting complex health issues and explaining them in the most simple and fun way. Better yet, this priceless knowledge delivered each week is free. The Model Health Show is not only having an impact on my life, but my family's life as well. Keep up the good work. From Jason.
Thank you, Jason. That's so awesome.
Right.
So much appreciation.
Yeah, we do.
Everybody, thank you so much for leaving those reviews over on iTunes. It totally makes my day every single time. Thank you so much. Now let's go ahead and get into our topic of the day and our special guest.
Let it roll.
Today's guest is Rich Roll, and I'm going to read this bio because it's so dope. All right. He's a graduate of Stanford University and Cornell Law School. Rich is, I believe he's still 47. He might be a little bit older.
He's
or
still fresh
younger.
looking.
47-year-old accomplished vegan ultra-endurance athlete and former entertainment attorney turned full-time wellness and plant-based nutrition advocate.
Nice.
Motivational speaker, husband, father of 4, and inspiration to people worldwide as a transformative example of courageous and healthy living. He is also a best-selling author, host of a hugely popular podcast, and was named by Men's Fitness as one of the top 25 fittest guys in the world.
Look at that.
I'd like to welcome to the Model Health Show, Mr. Rich Roll. How you doing today,
Yes.
man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. It's the double R coming to the double S today.
Yes.
That's
I
what's
love
up.
that,
That's
man.
what's
I love
up.
it.
I love
That's
it.
like some superhuman,
It is.
superpower stuff
It
right
is.
there, man. That's where I want to start, Rich. So you got to tell us your origin story, man. You got a really interesting story, to say the least, you know, from where you were prior to kind of having this revelation about getting your act, not just your health, but getting your act together. So can you share with us a little bit of your superhero origin story?
Yeah, sure. It's a pleasure to be on the show, by the way. Thanks for having me. You know, I was an athlete when I was younger. I was a swimmer, and I swam at Stanford University, which was kind of the #1 collegiate swim program at the time. So I had a sort of, you know, I wouldn't say storied career, because I was definitely a bench warmer at Stanford. I was not a big point scorer, but I did have a background in sports. But when that was over, that was the end of me being a fit, athletic person. And throughout my 20s and my early 30s, I had a protracted struggle with drug and alcohol addiction. That definitely put an early cap on my swimming career and you know, prevented me from really realizing my potential as an athlete. And I got sober when I was 31 after a 100-day stay in rehab. You know, my best thinking got me locked up in a mental institution, basically.
Wow.
But that really saved my life, you know, and it gave me, it was my first introduction to principles and tools to really think about how I was living in a new and different way. And as a result of that experience, you know, I was able to get sober and kind of repair all the wreckage of my past. You know, there was a lot of it. And, you know, I had to become a responsible member of society again and be somebody who was trustworthy and told the truth and showed up when he said he was going to show up and all of that. And as a result of doing that, by the time I was 39 years old, I kind of, you know, if you were on the outside looking in on my life, you would say this guy is, you know, living the American dream. You know, I live in a beautiful home that my wife and I built together. I was on the partnership track at a very prestigious law firm in Los Angeles. And, you know, I had a Porsche in the driveway and building a family, and it all looked great. But at the same time, I had this like hole in my spirit, you know, this nagging feeling that I just wasn't living the life that I was supposed to be living. Like, I was very unfulfilled in my career, and my whole life had been premised on this idea of, you know, study hard, get into the right school, get the great job, and, you know, work hard and all of that kind of stuff. And the implicit promise in that, you know, this sort of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow was that that was what was going to make me happy. And, you know, of course, I love my wife and my kids, but I just wasn't happy professionally. And the other thing that was kind of happening at the same time that I was starting to have this kind of an existential crisis about my life was that I wasn't taking care of my health and my fitness. You know, I was such a workaholic and so focused on my career that, you know, I just really didn't take care of myself. And I was living for the better part of my adult life on what I like to call the window diet, which is if you could drive your car up to a fine dining establishment, roll the window down, and they hand you food, that's what you eat, you know? And so cheeseburgers, French fries, nachos, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, you know, Jack in the Box, Chinese takeout in the law firm. I mean, this was my life, right? And, you know, I learned those eating habits when I was a swimmer and when I was training 4 hours a day, and I just could not, you know, get enough calories in. But when my swimming career was over, I was still stuck with those habits, you know, and maybe you can get away with that when you're 19 years old and you're swimming 20,000 meters a day. But when you're 39 years old and you're sitting at a desk, you know, for 80 hours a week, you know, that might catch up with you. And so it did. You know, when I was 39, I was 50 pounds overweight. You know, I was never like morbidly obese. I was never somebody that Jillian Michaels was going to yell at on a TV show or anything like that. But, you know, I felt horrible. I was lethargic. I was depressed. I was your classic couch potato hurtling into middle age. And this existential crisis that I was having kind of intersected and really collided with a health crisis late one night shortly before I turned 40, when I was defeated by a simple flight of stairs. I was going upstairs to go to bed one night, and I had to pause halfway up the flight of stairs. I was winded, I was out of breath, I was buckled over, I had tightness in my chest and sweat on my brow, and really the fear of God. I thought, oh my goodness, am I having a heart attack? Like, what is going on? And it was a very crystallized moment in which I realized, not only that I needed to change how I was living my life, but that, I really had the willingness, like the desire to make some significant changes. And that moment really is what, catapulted me into this world of wellness and healthy eating. And it's a longer story, but ultimately that's what fueled my desire to get fit and then enter the world of ultra endurance and start conquering these crazy challenges that I've undertaken.
Man, and the challenges are crazy. Like, you got to talk a little bit about that. But first, I want to ask you and to hear about it from your perspective, because there's a shift in the way that you were eating. You went from the window diet to where you are today. So why do you feel that food matters so much?
Food matters tremendously, and that's something I never really truly appreciated until I kind of reached this moment. And my wife, who's always been like my inspiration and my rock in this whole thing, had always been much healthier than me. She wasn't totally plant-based, but she was super into yoga and meditation and healthy eating and all this sort of stuff. And she had an experience where she had developed a cyst on her neck that was about the size of a golf ball. It was diagnosed as a thyroglossal duct cyst. We went to all the specialists, and all the doctors said the same thing, which is essentially that it needed to be surgically removed. It was never going to go away on its own. And she decided that she didn't want to do that. She was going to try to heal herself, and she sought out the advice of an Ayurvedic doctor who put her on this crazy program that prioritized plant-based foods and all these smelly, horrible herbs that she brought into our house. And, it took a long time, about 9 months, but she was able to heal herself of that, and it never came back. And that was my first experience with, what Hippocrates said in 340 BC, which is, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And, I'd never really thought about that before, but that was such a powerful example. And I think, that was part of what I was thinking when I decided I'm going to start getting healthy. I'm going to start treating food as medicine. And it wasn't overnight. It took me about 6 months of self-experimentation and playing around with different things before I realized that the thing that agreed with me the most and that made me feel the best was eating plant foods close to their natural state. And when I really kind of embraced that and went 100% plant-based, I just can't tell you what a difference it made in terms of my energy levels, my vitality, my mental acuity. Basically everything in my life improved. And I didn't do it by reading a textbook or watching a documentary. I was really just experimenting on myself and trying to find something that would agree with me. And, that's what worked for me. It really like revolutionized every aspect of my daily experience. And from that point, I became obsessed with human potential. And that kind of led me to this question of, if I could change my life so dramatically in such a short period of time, like what am I truly capable of if I actually took that and pushed it to the limit, took it to the absolute limits of my human potential to see what I could actually physically do in my 40s. And that's, again, what, kind of led me into the world of ultra endurance.
Wow. And I think that's a good segue. But first, I got to point out the fact that you can see this as a common theme for some of the people who are really at the top of their game, especially in the health community and especially in this podcasting phenomenon of you've experienced something very unique and powerful. Seeing your wife, who has this seemingly incurable situation, changed and resolved through food and through changing of her lifestyle. It changes your paradigm. When you see something that's incurable dissolved, nobody can tell you anything at that point. It's just like, I know something that is intangible that you cannot tell me other than I've seen it myself. And of course, just kind of talking about, this is somewhat of a spiritual transformation. And I haven't mentioned this before, I don't believe on this show, but this is actually what changed me. And I went through my own little experience of, changing the way I was eating, changing the way that I was thinking, changing my exercise to recover from this so-called incurable spinal condition, right? And so, nope, already, you can't tell me anything. Incurable, no such thing, right? But then there are levels to that, you know, because I'm just thinking like, oh, this is because it's something solid, right? This is like, I was degenerating, now I just kind of regrew myself. But it was my girlfriend at the time, she's my wife today, but my girlfriend, and she was diagnosed with a particular cervical cancer, right? And it was very mild. It wasn't something that was, you know, up in alarms, like, you know, we've got to do radiation, this kind of thing right now. Just some rogue cells that they found. And she came back and told her mother about this. And her mother, people who've listened to the show, is very influential in my thinking. She had studied at Ann Wigmore's Institute in Puerto Rico, you know, learn about all the raw foods. I would come to their house, it's got like wheatgrass. And I'm just still like a total, like, you know, guy, you know, like I know it all. What is this crate? Like, why is she smoking that wheatgrass? I don't know. What is that? And so she would just kind of like, no, just don't worry about my mom, just keep going. But her mom started to talk to me a little bit, and she had the right approach with a guy like me who's very firm in my thinking, which is like, don't tell me what to do. You know, she would just talk, you know, just tell stories. But I would see, and I came over to her house one day and I saw there was a physician sitting on her couch. And I'm like, why is this doctor listening to your mom? You know, she's smart and all. She's an occupational therapist, actually. And I'm like, but why he doesn't need to see a doctor or see himself, you know? But I'd seen situations like that, and so many people would send her gifts and send her, you know, cards every holiday from all these people that she's helped over the years. And she just had abundance of this good stuff coming back to her. So when she found out about this cancer situation, I was like, you got to tell your mom about this. Like, I don't know what to say. You know, she was very upset. She was crying. So she finally told her mother, and she was crying when she told her mother. Mother's like, why are you crying? You just need to do this, this, and this, you know? And my wife is like, what do you mean? You know, kind of wiping the tears. And so she did what her mother said, and she put her onto a protocol of really involves a significant amount of fasting, juicing, wheatgrass, all this kind of good stuff. But then some more anti-cancer type of components were thrown in there. Long story short, and by the way, guys, this is not saying that this is a cure for anything. This is just a personal experience that I saw. She went back to see the physician about a month later, and they couldn't find anything, right?
That's right.
And so she calls me, and I'm just like, it didn't make any sense. Like, it broke my paradigm again. Like, how is that possible? They said you have these cancer cells. Where do they go? And so once I heard that, I knew that there was something I needed to tell the world, you know? And from there, I had a client who I was working with, you know, in the gym. I was a strength and conditioning coach still, you know, this is 10 years ago. And she had fibroid tumors. And she was like, yeah, Shawn, I'm trying to get in shape. And, you know, I was like, but you have these fibroid tumors. Let's try and do something about it. And so I put her on the protocol and I couldn't have somebody do something ethically that I hadn't done. So I did the fasting, 21 days and all this whole stuff. Wow. And it changes you, man, and you know this. And so my client did the same thing. 18 days later, she was laying on the floor doing a little bit of a mobility exercise or something, and she hadn't touched herself because she was so kind of just distraught, you know, like she was kind of grossed out by herself. And she was looking for the tumor, and I remember so clearly, she's on the ground, and I'm like, what are you doing, Kathy? And she's like, I can't find it. I can't find it. And the tumor that was the size of a grapefruit, 2 grapefruits, were like raisins, right? And I'm just like, I mean, it changed my paradigm again.
Yeah, it does.
And again, I'm not saying that there's a cure, but creating the right conditions in your body, giving your body the raw materials it needs to do the job it already knows how to do is very, very powerful. And so you saw the same thing, and thank you for letting me share that, and thank you for sharing your story. But this is a great segue also. The last thing you mentioned was you transitioned into ultra. What is this, man? Like, what are these ultra endurance events consist of? Why are you doing them? And how good are you, Rich? You gotta let people know, like, some of these amazing feats that you've accomplished.
Yeah, sure. I mean, just to kind of piggyback on what you just said first, though, I mean, I think it is, you know, my journey started with a 7-day, you know, not 21 days, but a 7-day fruit and vegetable juice cleanse, and that was something that broke my paradigm too, because I'm a rational guy. Like, what is this? How is this detoxing me? Like, I don't get it. But I was able to set aside, my ideas got me into trouble. So I had to be willing to entertain a different way, a different idea. And that's the only way that I've ever been able to grow. But that 7-day experience was very profound, because at the end of that 7 days, I felt amazing. And that's really was like wiping the slate clean to start fresh. So I think those sort of, detoxing, juicing protocols, if for no other reason than symbolically, are like, really huge and powerful. And I think that, we have a tendency in our culture to abdicate all of our decision making when it comes to our health to our doctors. And your story and your example and my experience are, I think, a powerful reminder that we can all take better control of these decisions by educating ourselves and taking matters into our own hands, and not just taking direction from, whatever your doctor happens to say. Because, believe it or not, 99% of the doctors out there, they didn't receive nutritional education in medical school. It's really just not part of the curriculum. And, their sort of nutritional education really isn't any more, advanced than a lot of people out there who have taken it upon themselves to educate themselves. And that's not to say that, Western medicine doesn't have its place, particularly in an acute situation. I'm not saying, don't go to your doctor, but I think that, these stories are really instrumental in helping people understand that we do have greater control over how we feel and how our body functions than maybe we might immediately realize. Thanks for indulging me in that speech. To answer your question, yeah, I mean, it goes back to this question when I really got in touch with, how profound it is to do what I just said, which is take these matters into your own hands. I really wanted to test myself, and in order to answer that question of, what am I capable of? Well, I needed a challenge, right? I needed a challenge, and you've heard like, oh, well, the Ironman is the ultimate test of human endurance. And I was contemplating, doing that, which is kind of like a bucket list item for a guy who turns 40. And then I just happened upon reading about this race that I'd never heard of called Ultraman. It's a double Ironman distance triathlon. And for your listeners who might not know what an Ironman is a very long triathlon, which over the course of one day, you swim 2.4 miles, then you get on your bike and you ride your bike 112 miles. And then after that, you run a marathon, right? So it's crazy hard, crazy long. It takes, even the best athletes all day to do it. And certainly nothing I ever thought I would be able to do. But then I read about this race called Ultraman, which is twice that distance. It's a 320-mile, 3-day double Ironman race that circumnavigates over this 3-day period the whole big island of Hawaii, which is a big island. It's about the size of Connecticut. And the way it works is the first day you swim 6.2 miles in the ocean, and then you get on your bike and you ride 90 miles. And then the second day you get on your bike and you ride 171 miles. And the third day, you celebrate it all by running 52.4 miles, a double marathon. And as I'm reading about this race, it just blew my mind. Like, I had no idea that a human being was even capable of doing something like that. I couldn't understand what would motivate somebody to volunteer for this race. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it's a really special race because there's no media coverage. There's no prize money. It's a world championship event, but like it doesn't really get any attention. It's very grassroots. They don't even close the roads during the race. Like you're riding your bike and there's cars driving by, and it's crew supported. You have to bring your own crew with you in a minivan that follows you around, and you get fed off the van, and there's backup bicycle parts, and you have all your gear in there. And it's limited to just 35 invitation-only, hand-selected athletes from all over the world who congregate on the Big Island every year on Thanksgiving weekend. And it was like this switch was flicked, and something inside me knew, like, I'm going to do that race. Like, I can't explain it. It wasn't logical. I just felt compelled to figure out a way to get there. And, it's a longer story, but ultimately I kind of relied on my lawyerly skills to hoodwink the race director and letting me participate, which again, defies all logic and rationality, because I'd never even done a half Ironman before. Like, I had no business even entertaining the idea that I could do something like this, but I was determined, and that's when I hired a coach. I started really educating myself about how to fuel myself on a plant-based diet, how to, recover as an athlete, how to properly train. And I only had 7 months to get ready for the first time that I did this race. And the first time I did it was in 2008. And my only goal was to not die, I wasn't there to race it or try to beat anyone. I just wanted to see if I could do it. I was there to celebrate this amazing transformation that I'd had in my life. Cause when I changed my diet and started embracing wellness, I lost the 50 pounds. I got super fit. I got all cut up. I was lean. I was strong. I was recovering really quickly in between my workouts. And so I did this race, and I think most people thought this guy's probably not even going to finish. And I ended up being the second fastest American and 10th overall that year. And it took me back to that question, what am I capable of? Have I answered that question for myself? And, I realized, no, I hadn't. I was there to survive it, not to really, compete in it. And so I decided I was going to go back the following year, train an entire year, get super ready for this race and see what I could do. And that's what I did. I showed up in 2009, twice the athlete I was the year before, and, jumped into the ocean for the race and got out of the water with a 10-minute lead on the next athlete and held that lead on the bike that whole day and was winning that world championship at the end of stage 1 by 10 minutes, which was crazy because at the time I was a 43-year-old corporate lawyer, who literally, a year and a half prior hadn't really done anything. And I think it goes back to the testament of, the power of foods and what happens when, you really can get focused about things that you want to achieve in your life. And, ultimately on the second day of that race, I crashed my bike. It's a whole long story. I didn't think I was going to finish the race and broke my pedal, and there was all this drama, and I fell out of the lead and, was no longer in podium contention, but I was still able to, finish that race. And on the third day, with a swollen knee and all the skin sheared off of my left arm, managed to work my way back up the field and be the fastest American and finish 6th overall. So that was a crazy experience. I mean, a couple of years prior, if you told me that, I was going to be able to run 52 miles on the third day of such a crazy event, I would have said you were absolutely insane. I thought I was done and had answered that question for myself of, the limits of my human capabilities, when a friend of mine hoodwinked me into doing something in 2010 that he called Epic 5, which is where we tried to complete 5 Ironmans on 5 Hawaiian islands and do it in 5 days. And that was the craziest adventure of my life. And we did it. It took us a little bit longer than 5 days. We had a bunch of bike mechanical problems and logistical issues and all kinds of sleep deprivation stuff that came in. So we did it in a little under 7 days. And that was in 2010.
And that's still amazing.
5 Ironmans. Really? Really? That's superhero stuff, man. And what I'm hearing, really, this is with the change that happened with your physical body, through right nutrition, right thinking, you're starting to actually understand what you're capable of, and actually starting to see why, how it's all happening. It is the power of food. It is the power of my approach to life. And so just to kind of circle back around to, when I gave the story about the fibroid tumors earlier, these were things that I was seeing wow, I see what's possible, but I don't understand why. I don't understand what's beyond this. And that's where I am today. I could break this stuff down to the nth degree, like nobody's business. So when we're talking about fibroid tumors, for example, this is a very simple situation of estrogen dominance in the body. Fibroids it's actually a protective mechanism. Your body's basically creating this internal little garbage can to kind of house all these overabundance of estrogen hormones. So what are the things, what would you think we would need to do if we've got an overabundance of these hormones? We need to back off. We need to avoid the exposure to these things. We need to give our body the proper channels to go and break this stuff down, which we had on Dr. Sarah Gottfried recently, and she talked about how it's critical about your gut integrity. Your gut, your digestive tract has to be willing and able. Fiber is so important at removing estrogens, especially these xenoestrogens from your system. And if you're fueling your body on red hot riplets and bologna sandwiches, we're gonna have a problem.
Sure.
But these are just systems for your body, little alarms set up for you to change. And so you know, I'm just hearing that you're taking this stuff and actually applying it and figuring out how you work, what you can do, and it's super exciting stuff, man. And you've actually inspired a question here from Jade as well. So what you would ask?
Well, the question for me, and that is getting in touch and getting into that self-discovery. I want to take you back a little bit to those early days. Help us, share with us some of the steps to your shift. Because once you became aware, you took off like a rocket. But what about in that shift? Because you came from, I would say, the other end of the pendulum. And then in the 40s, where many of us are facing those years, how to figure out that focus. What were some of the steps to your shift?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and that really gets at the heart of the whole thing. You know, there's kind of a, you know, if you read about my story online, there's a neatly packaged narrative that makes it look like it all happened overnight and it was seamless and very linear. And, you know, I could tell you that that's not the case. That's not how human beings operate. And, you know, for me, you know, pain has always been the only thing that could ever motivate me to change my errant ways, you know? So when I see people in pain and, or struggling, I look at that as a gift. You know, that's your divine moment. You know, that's your opportunity. You know, try to, you know, leverage that and catalyze that into change, because willingness is super important, and you cannot compel somebody to be willing. That willingness has to be internally driven. And the gift that I received was to have that internal drive and willingness to make these shifts. And, you know, I'm an obsessive compulsive person who's prone to extremes, whether it's like, you know, drinking and drugs or Ultraman. You know, there's certainly parallels in there in terms of my ability to throw myself into something whole hog. But, you know, it's not like changing my diet was an immediate overnight thing. You know, I struggled with it and had my ups and downs and my mishaps and all of that. And I think, you know, when people are looking at trying to, you know, make these changes for themselves, some of the things that I like to talk about are, you know, first and foremost, relieving yourself of the pressure to be perfect. So, you know, we have this idea that we want to do it perfectly. And I think perfection is the enemy of progress, right? So what happens is somebody might look at you, Shawn, you look super fit, you are super fit, they aspire to, you know, your level of wellness, and they're motivated and they begin a journey, and then something happens that intervenes, and you know, they find themselves late one night face planted in a pint of Haagen-Dazs and say, well, I can't do it, you know, and they give up. Right? They throw out the baby with the bathwater, and then they're back to doing whatever they did before. So I always say, you know, just stay rooted in what you're doing today. And if you slip up, you know, don't consider it a failure and judge yourself and beat yourself up, because then you've just made a second mistake. Just try to learn from the experience. Don't worry about what you're doing next week or next month. Just what are you doing right now? How can you make a better choice in this moment? How can you make your next meal better than the meal that preceded it? And when you don't, you know, achieve, when you set a high standard for yourself and you don't achieve it, you know, that's okay. You know, that's okay, because it's about long term. It's about creating sustainable, healthier habits that work within the construct of your busy life. And you know, the other thing that I always tell people is that, and this has been super powerful for me, is this idea that mood follows action. Mood follows action. It's not the other way around. And for some reason, as human beings, we want to believe it's the other way. Like, oh, I don't feel great. Like, you know, when I feel better, then I'll go out, I'll go to the gym. Or when I feel better, then I'll go, you know, decide that I'm going to, you know, make an improvement in my life. And it doesn't work that way. You have to take the action despite however you feel about it. So as you know, when you don't feel like it and then you go to the gym or you work out, you never get on the other side of that and say, I wish I hadn't done that, right? And then you feel better. Yeah, you do. Right? So it's about just beginning. And I think also people want to have everything figured out before they begin. Right. You know, like they won't go out running until they know exactly what kind of running shoe they need, and they want to sit around and debate the pros and cons of this Garmin watch versus that GPS watch. And it's like, those are just excuses that are getting in the way of you actually taking the action, right? Yeah. Just start. Like when I began, I didn't know I was going to be doing Ultraman. I didn't have it all figured out. I just started, you know, and one thing leads to another. And the idea is to create momentum. You know, momentum is super powerful, right? when you're going to the gym a lot, then it's easy to go to the gym. But when you haven't gone in a couple weeks, like getting that momentum going again is very difficult. So to the extent that you can create that kind of propulsion around healthier habits, that tends to take on a life of its own.
I love that.
Yeah,
That's
there's
huge.
so many huge nuggets and takeaways
Oh my
there.
goodness.
Part one was, for me, and so powerful, man. Thank you for sharing that, is that progress equals power. Progress equals power. And the second thing is, what Tony Robbins says is that emotion is created by emotion. You know, so your motion creates your emotion. And so you're just talking about you got to take action, even if you're not feeling like it. And something interesting, I don't know if I've talked about this before, many times before, is that humans generate something called piezoelectricity. Like, just by you moving, you're creating electricity, you're creating energy.
Right.
But if you're parked on the couch or face planted in a
That was
glass,
great.
you're not going to be generating a lot of this potential energy, you know. And also just laws of physics that things in motion tend to stay in motion, and the
Things
vice
at
versa.
rest
So potential
stay at
energy
rest.
and kinetic energy, you know, very powerful things, and the power of momentum. So, man, thank you for sharing that, man. And what I want to get into now is, you sent me an advanced copy of this, and when this airs, this actually might be out now, but this amazing book right here, The Plant Power Way, and already had some recipes because that's how I roll.
I love
You
it.
know, and man, so good, man. And I want to talk about this because, you know, you're not one of those individuals who is promoting separation between communities. You know, there's a lot of powerful movements happening with vegetarian community, vegan community, raw foods, paleo, and all of us have some things of value that we're adding to the table. The great news is that we're all focused on real food, whole foods. And this is like the biggest foundation piece of transforming our health. We're really debating about details right now. And what was so interesting is that you brought up the fact that this is not just for the plant-based community. You know, this is something that anybody can add in. So I want to know what makes this book different from the other plant-based books that are out there. I want to hear it from you.
Yeah, I'm glad you like the book. It is true that you know, there's a lot of energy that goes into kind of this dialogue and debate, like vegan versus paleo, and what's the best diet, and you know, there's camps within all of these subgroups, and they're all kind of bickering over the final 1% of what we agree on. And the truth is, whatever your dietary proclivities, whether you're vegan, Mediterranean, you know, whatever it is, the one sort of continuum that everybody agrees on is that we need to eat, you know, a lot of plant foods, a lot of vegetables, and that most people are not doing this, right? So we're all health inclined, but there's another America going on right now that is suffering, right? If you look at the statistics, 1 out of every 3 Americans is going to die of heart disease. By 2030, 50% of Americans are going to be diabetic or pre-diabetic, and 70% of Americans are obese or overweight. So while we're arguing, you know, there's a lot of normal people out there that need better information and need the inspiration to make a transition into a healthier lifestyle. And so when we wrote this book, you know, I kind of looked at all the other kind of cookbooks that are out there, and there's certainly no shortage of amazing books and amazing, you know, plant-based nutrition, cookbook guides, et cetera. But what I didn't see was a real modern, beautiful, like coffee table book that not only contained amazing, delicious, easy to prepare, budget conscious recipes, but also had the guidance and the tools and the opinion pieces and resources to really speak to the concerns and the needs of the typical modern American family who's busy. You know, maybe they're not listening to podcasts like this. Maybe they don't have time to go online and research nutrition. You know, they know in the back of their mind, like, oh, I should probably eat organic, and I don't really know what a GMO is or anything like that. But, you know, they see their kids eating, you know, terrible foods at school, and they're concerned because we all love our kids. How can we get our kids to eat healthier? And we really wanted to create a book that would be really beneficial, inspirational, and also, you know, extremely informative and easy to use for that typical, you know, person, that typical family, because I just didn't see any other book out there like that. So, you know, I'm a proud member of the plant-based community, and those are my peeps and all of that. But, you know, there's a lot of other people out there that need help, and I didn't want to write a book that was so segmented towards you know, a small percentage of our culture. I wanted to be able to speak to everybody and create a welcome mat for people that are intimidated by healthy eating, or they think it's going to be, they think, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of, grass and salad, like, and to say, no, you know what? This is cool. This is modern. This is fun. This is delicious. Like, we're thriving. There's a lot of lifestyle photography in the book to kind of show you, like, hey man, we all look healthy and we're happy and we're enjoying this lifestyle and the water's warm over here. And, I can be the guy who's, 100% plant-based and goes out and does these crazy, long distance races, not because I expect everybody to, follow my example to a T, but maybe it makes them rethink their own choices and say, you know what, like, I'm going to meet that guy halfway. And to me, that's a huge victory.
Absolutely.
That
and
is for
the
us all.
reality is you and I don't have to agree on all points of nutrition. What we do agree on is the fact that we all could benefit from eating more plants. We can all benefit from eating foods that actually have some life force, living foods. And I seen immediately when I was going through the book and the recipes, was just seeing the fact that there is a consistency of having more raw foods included in the recipes. And just, I think that one of the big leverage points that this brings to our community is the fact that we want more, we'll just say delicious ways to consume raw foods, instead of just like literally eating a piece of celery. Like, how can we make it into like a pate or something like that, And this is what it's providing, a way that we can add in more of these foods that we all really need access to, including whatever you might be into, paleo nutrition or vegetarian, where you're including some animal foods. But just adding more of this stuff in is going to do amazing things, just nothing but more benefit for your strategy and for your life. And so let's talk a little bit about that. Were you strategically looking to add in more raw foods into this? Why the focus on more raw foods?
You mean in the book in particular?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the more that we can eat, foods close to their natural state, the better off we're going to be. And there's plenty of cooked foods in the book, and I wouldn't consider myself fully raw or anything like that. But I eat a ton of raw foods. I'm sure you do as well. And there's just there's something about getting back to the basics. Nature has done a pretty good job of creating a bounty of amazing foods that actually taste delicious close to their natural state. So the recipes are oriented around, trying to use what nature has already provided and create something unique and delicious and super nutritious, without having to, cook something all day and just boil all the nutrients out of it. Food is a vibration, right? And for me, you talked earlier about, this is kind of being a spiritual journey for you. And for me, I cannot overstate that it's all been a spiritual journey. Everything that has happened to me defies logic and sort of is rooted in the unknown to some extent. And, everything is energy. Everything carries a vibration. That when you hang out with negative people, you're going to get depressed, right? And you hang out with Tony Robbins for a weekend and you're fired up. Well, because Tony Robbins is carrying a very particular, very powerful vibration that you can absorb by being in his presence. And I think that food is no different, right? So every kind of food that you're eating carries a vibration. And I think that raw foods carry a really strong, powerful, healthy, positive vibration. And to the extent that you can build more raw foods into your diet, you are going to feel that in your energy levels. And when you take in foods that carry that high vibration, that are super nutritious and fortifying, that affects everything. It's not just your health in a biochemical sense, it's how you think and how you feel about yourself. And that spills over into how you interact with the people around you, how focused you are at work. Like, everything in your life has this massive ripple effect that will absolutely amplify the quality of, your experience here in this short time that we have on Earth. So don't we want to make it great? Don't we want to, exude positive energy, surround ourselves with cool people, and, unleash a better, healthier, more authentic version of ourselves, right?
Yes.
I mean, isn't that what we're doing here?
Absolutely, man.
A higher vibrating version of ourselves.
What you just did was this is straight up everyday terms. We're talking about vibration. And if we dive deeper into that, for the science geeks out there, much like myself, and we look at some of the interesting research about why raw foods can be so effective and so helpful, and the vibration that they carry, like you talked about, there was a fascinating study that I came across many years ago that changed my paradigm and really had me to shift my focus on including more raw foods into my nutrition. And I think this is the first time I'm sharing this here on my show after 100 episodes, but for me personally, 3.5 years, I did a 100% raw food protocol. 3.5 years in the cold Midwest. Midwest winter.
Impressive, man.
You know,
impressive.
And that I'm a similar character, man. Like I'm 120%er. You know, so there was no cheat day. It wasn't even a concept to me. You know, and of course I found out all the great things about it, but then I also found out the potential holes there. And I'm somebody who I fill holes, so I was looking around to find out the ways to balance those things out and trying every and anything that I could to figure it out. But anyways, with that experience, though, the interesting study I came across was looking at human DNA. And once they found a strong enough microscope and they kept going down to the different levels, they eventually uncovered the fact that over 90% of our DNA is actually biophotons, right? So biophotons. So people are hearing that like, what is that? Light. Upwards of 90% of your DNA is light. What?
90%.
So we think,
DNA.
again, we're this solid thing, but we're far more than that. You know, our brain is set up to see a certain dimension of reality, a certain spectrum of light, actually. And other creatures, other animals can actually see different spectrums of light. So I'm going to get into more infrared, ultraviolet, that kind of thing. And this is just how we're wired up. So to understand that you are mostly made of light, and we want to, you are what you eat, right? We know this concept, but we want to eat things that are going to help to fortify that, you know? And so you're going to see this kind of light, this biophoton energy in raw and living foods. When you cook it, and you've seen this too before, Rich, I know, the curly in photography, right? And so you
I've seen that, yeah.
You see the food when it's raw and it's got all this light emanating from it with this particular form of photography that was actually used, I believe it was World War I or World War II is when it was start to be uncovered. But anyways, then you see a food that's cooked and it looks like sewage. Like the light is just like, it's gone, it's dead, you know, as far as this light construct. So that's number one, the light energy, you know, this kind of thing we're not even talking about in nutrition yet. Second thing is very tangible, talking a lot about this in nutrition, is the enzymes. And your body has a sort of a bank account when dealing with enzymes. Food enzymes help to digest that food. When you cook your foods over upwards of like 118 degrees, you're gonna lose upwards of 100% of those enzymes. So that means your body is required to build its own enzymes to break that stuff down, which means less energy. It means it's taking from your bank account. It's a more stressful situation for your body. So what the research indicates is that if your meal is less than 50% living foods, you're gonna get an immune response, a heightened immune response. So just making sure that your meals are, you know, at least 50% living foods can really be something to help to fortify anybody's health. And again, this is not across the board. All this stuff has variation, you know, but even if you include 10% of your meal or just 10% of your day when it was 0, that's progress. Progress equals power.
Well,
right?
that makes a real vivid analogy for us to look at if under that camera or that scope, that the plant before it was cooked had all this vibrant light and then looked like sewage. Imagine if me, raw and with more vibrant light, and I'm toasted from stress and the poor foods I'm taking in, imagine what my energy looks like.
Toasted.
Yeah, toasted. It has to run a similar course. So that stands to reason.
Rich, I want to ask you a personal question. What's your favorite recipe in the book?
Right.
You're asking me to pick from my babies. You know, I love all the blended smoothies. You know, that's kind of like my go-to thing in the morning, green smoothies and, you know, recovery smoothies, you know, for performance enhancement. I love all those. In terms of, you know, my wife is really the artist in the kitchen, and you know, what you see a lot of is you know, when somebody in the health space, you know, comes time for them to put a cookbook out, they have to partner with the chef, right? Because
Yeah.
they're not, they're not an expert in the kitchen. They know a lot about health and nutrition, but to put a cook together, you need somebody who's really adept in the kitchen. And that's my wife. So we didn't have to do
Nice.
that. Like this story, like my first book, Finding Ultra, was really my memoir. It was my personal story. And the Plant Power Way is our family's story. And it's very authentic. Like these are the recipes that we eat, that we developed over the last 8 years of me going on this journey, and then our family together embarking upon this. And so, it's not like, oh, this is some really, all the recipes are not precious. They're not super gourmet. They're all very easy to use, and they're all stuff that like my kids eat and we all enjoy together. And my favorites are the Aztec enchiladas are incredible, I would say. The one bowls are probably the thing that I eat, most regularly, that are super nutritious and really easy to prepare. And there's a plant-based lasagna recipe that's pretty extraordinary. And Julie has really perfected the veggie burger. So that recipe is amazing because, I've been doing this for 8 years, but like, I like that texture of a burger, right? And to be able to find like a veggie burger, because most of the veggie burgers are horrible, to find one that actually satisfies me in that way is like is pretty cool. So those would be a few, but there's tons in there.
Awesome, yeah. That man, it's so good. You're so right about those veggie burgers, though, man. Because
Right.
I was living
Mushy
that life
burgers.
too, man. But what we have here is, you can see that a lot went into this, and a lot of care, and just the little stories that are in here along the way is really, really powerful. And one of the things that I liked is, and by the way, she also talks about, or you guys collectively talk about sprouting and soaking of beans and things like that, because I just did an episode, and it might come out after this or before this, talking about this asthma epidemic and the autoimmune response that can be triggered due to consuming legumes. And one of the big things that helps to overcome that is just soaking them, to get rid of the enzyme inhibitors and things like that.
Right.
And then you can use these type of things and make some wonderful dishes with it. But one of the things that we made was the sweet vanilla almond milk. And that was another thing that when we did the asthma episode, because I used to have asthma like horribly bad, and it's been 10 years. I can't even believe that I had that issue,
Right.
And it was because after I changed the way I was eating tremendously, at the end of every day I was still eating 2 bowls of cereal with this organic, grass-fed, pasteurized milk, right? And my mother-in-law and I was having hay fever symptoms, and she was like, is the problem out there or is the problem in you? And I was like, wow, wait, it's not the weather, it's me. And so the next day I found out some data about the issues around dairy. And the next day, this is the part I didn't share in that episode, the next day she made me almond milk for the first time, right? And it's just like, I can have this, I'm good, right? And so, but yours
When you discover.
yours adds in a little bit of sweetness from dates and also the vanilla, right? And so we got
sounds so
some fresh vanilla bean and threw that in there. So the sweet vanilla almond milk and also the crumbled walnut parmesan. So it's a good alternative because dairy just doesn't really jive with me, period. So having the little parmesan to sprinkle on. So we made zucchini noodles. Right, we got the little spiral thing.
Yes.
I posted a video on Instagram of my son making them a little while back.
Cool.
So I'm at Shawn Model on Instagram. I'm kind of new to the game, but I got some cool stuff there. At Shawn Model, and he's like, doing it, and I'm like, what are you doing, Brayden? He's like, making noodles, like zucchini.
Kids love the spiraler, man. That's
Right.
a super fun thing for them to do.
Yeah, this stuff could be so fun, man. But so we made the zucchini noodles. We of course had meat sauce. And what did we do? And we had a side of salad.
You said meat sauce.
Yeah, we use meat sauce.
Oh, okay.
And so,
Just checking.
I'm
I'm like, ooh, another recipe.
and then we topped it with. You're not gonna find meat sauce. And then we topped it with the walnut parmesan. Man, it's so good.
And that was the extra
It's
touch.
absurd.
That was the
Right?
touch. Yeah.
It's crazy good, right?
Yeah, man. It took it to another level. Like it was like pasta house quality. That was my spot. That endless lasagna, whatever it was. And I have that carb coma afterwards. But no more of that, man.
Have you tried there are these new kinds of pasta? I forget what the name of the company is, but they make them out of beans. There's like an adzuki bean pasta, a black bean pasta, and a mung bean pasta.
Yeah.
And they're really high in protein. very low carb, and very low fat, and they taste incredibly good. I think it's called explore-asian.com or something like that. I can email you the link, but you can, if you can't find them in your local market, you can order them online.
Yeah.
And I thought, zucchini bean pasta, like that sounds terrible, but we tried it, and this stuff is so tasty. So especially for people that have an issue with gluten, or are gluten sensitive or gluten intolerant, it's a pretty great alternative, and we've got recipes for that in the book as well.
Yeah, I actually saw that for the first time in your book. I had no idea that you could do that. But if you can make milk out of a nut, you could
make
you know what I'm saying?
noodles
But
that pasta out of beans.
We've done the kale noodles. I'm sorry, not kale. The kelp noodles many times, and also just using different seaweeds to make different consistencies, like fettuccine. There's what was it called? I think it was maybe sea lettuce or something like that. But just having different consistencies with these different seaweeds, and making zucchini noodles, and just you can have them al dente, where they're raw or slightly cooked, or you can cook them a little bit and get some nice consistencies. Because what we really want, we want the sauce.
Yeah.
The noodles are a delivery system, We just don't want the noodles to screw it up, And so much great stuff in here, man. And at this point, I'm just kidding. And do you need some water? Are you okay? That was like,
good.
It sounded like a fur ball, for real. All right. So Rich, what I want to talk about now really quickly, and we're coming to the end here, but you put a little special section in here about something I just mentioned, about the kids getting involved, and that you just mentioned. And you put a special section in there talking about how to encourage your kids to eat some of these real foods, real whole foods, and to improve their health and their quality of life, and also, potentially other family members. But so can we talk a little bit about that? What are some of the strategies that people out there can use? Because they're just like, my kids are not going to eat this. My husband isn't going to eat this, but I want to try. I really want to change what I've been doing. What are some strategies to help to bring other people on board so you don't feel so isolated?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's the ultimate question for any parent, right? Because everybody's concerned. Everybody loves their kids and wants them to eat healthy. And, we all see what goes on with school lunch and how terrible it is. And, it causes a lot of stress for parents trying to figure out how to navigate all of this. And, I've got 4 kids, and now they're all like super on board. But, it's been a long journey to get to this place. And some of the things that seem to have worked well for us are, first of all, we never prepare kids' meals. Like, our kids eat what we eat, right? That's like number one.
Virtual dap right there, man.
Yeah. So never create that differentiation. The second thing is, you got to walk your talk. Like, you can't expect your kids to get on board with eating better and being healthier if you're sneaking the chips in the middle of the night or whatever. And if you think your kids don't know, they know. Kids are way more intuitive than you think. So you gotta be consistent. Be consistent between your actions and your words. And the other thing is, we don't create rules around what the foods the kids can eat and can't eat. We don't say you can't eat this, or that kind of thing. We fill our house with super healthy options, and my wife, again, is an amazing cook, so it makes it easy. But we don't say you can't have this, you can't have that. And so when my little girls go to a birthday party and they have cake and they have pizza, I'm not going to be the dad who says you can't have that. I am not going to try to socially marginalize my children in that way. I just allow them. I basically use food as an opportunity to educate them at every step of the way. We take them to the market, to the farmer's market, to the supermarket. And as we're strolling the aisles, every food that we look at is an opportunity to have a discussion, to broaden their horizons, to better understand where that food came from, how it was grown, what went into bringing it, from the farm into the market. And then when we get home, we involve them in every aspect of the meal preparation. You talked about your kid using the spy roller. Well, that's something that we do as well. Like, at a very early age, we started teaching them how to prepare recipes. So, we have a chia seed pudding recipe in the cookbook, and that's one of the first things we taught our little girls how to make, like a dessert that really tastes good, that they know how to make. And so what happens is, the more you educate them and the more empowered they become, then that creates an emotional attachment, not only to the process of what goes into food, but also to the preparation and enjoyment of it. So, when they're super young, maybe all they can do is go out into the yard and find a flower or something they can put on the table. But anything that you can do to create that attachment to the process of the meal time and the food, I think is good. So what happens is that creates self-esteem, and we empower them, and we give them their sovereignty, right? So it goes back to not creating rules. So, they go to a birthday party, probably 6 times out of 10, they're going to have that cake. They're going to have that piece of pizza. And I don't shame them. I don't judge them. But on the drive home, when they're complaining about a stomach ache, then we can have a talk about it. Well, what do you think led to that? Like, what do you think was going on? And, maybe next time think about that. Okay. Yeah, so I'm less concerned about what they eat at that birthday party, and far more concerned about trying to create a habit and a lifestyle perspective that's going to serve them for the rest of their life in the long term.
Absolutely. What are your children's ages?
We have 2 little girls that are 7 and 11, and we have 2 boys that are 18 and 20. So we got the full gamut.
That's right.
Nice.
That's right.
Built-in babysitters is what I call it.
That's right.
Full
awesome,
scope.
man. Well, man, this is so phenomenal. And depending on when we can get this out, the book would be in pre-order or it has just been released. So can you let everybody know where they can get their hands on your brand new book with these amazing recipes?
Yeah, sure. The book goes on sale on April 28th. If this goes up before that, you can pre-order it. We have all these like pre-order gifts and giveaways, like all these bonus things if you pre-order before April 28th. And you can find all of that on my website at richroll.com. After April 28th, you can still get it through my site, but you can also get it pretty much everywhere, Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, wherever you buy, your books, either in the bookstore or online. It's going to be pretty easy to find.
Excellent, man. So just let people know where they can get connected with you. You've got a lot of stuff going on out there in social media and everything.
Yeah, so easiest way to connect with me is my website, richroll.com. My podcast, the Rich Roll Podcast, you can find it the same place you find this show, Shawn's show, on iTunes and Stitcher and all those good places. And I'm on social media. I'm really easy to find there, just at Rich Roll on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Snapchat at I am Rich Roll. And I'm starting to play around with Periscope, and I just love social media and connecting with people. So, look for me in all of those places.
Awesome, man. Well, I just want to thank you because, I know intimately what it takes to have the audacity to pick yourself up, from hitting that rock bottom spot and to transform your life. And not only did you transform your life, I mean, you went like superhuman status, like. We just had Jackie Joyner Kersey on. You asked, like, have the Avengers called you?
Right.
Seriously, man, have the Avengers called you to join up? Because these feats that you've accomplished and just what you're demonstrating is so powerful, because a lot of us, we get very limited in our thinking. And even though you were limited in your thinking, you still went and took action and you went beyond it. You saw what you can do. And I just want to acknowledge you and thank you for being the person you are, because you've inspired so many people with the work you're doing, man. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I appreciate what you're doing with your show and with your advocacy, and we need more guys like you, man. So keep up the amazing work, and it was a gift and a pleasure to spend an hour with you today, man. And I look forward to meeting you in person. I'd love it if next time you come to LA, we could connect. I'd love to have you on my show as well and let you tell my listeners your story.
Awesome, man. It's already done. It's already done.
All right.
And thank you, Rich. I received that. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show. One of the big takeaways for today is really to add in. Don't worry about dieting and cutting away things. Just add some of this stuff in. Get your hands on some of these amazing recipes, some raw food recipes. Get more living foods into your body, because you are a living entity. It just kind of makes logical sense. Absolutely. Cooking is one of the things that help to evolve the human brain. That's wonderful. It's a wonderful technology, but we need to have this conscious understanding of the benefits that these living foods have in their natural state. There's this life force there that you can't get anywhere else. So that's the big takeaway for today, is to add in, take action, and share this show. Make sure to share this show with the people you care about. And Have an amazing day. Take care, and I'll talk with you soon.
Love and light to you.
Peace. Plants.